Today on Bitcoin, we are up and over this descending resistance line. Very nice to see. Volume is still low, but considering we were so oversold, so low on the RSI, I would hope to see some further gains out of Bitcoin from this point on. No one cares about Bitcoin. That's old news. It's alt season. Is it alt season? Let's have a look. So let's take a look at what's going on here, starting off with some of the biggest gainers out of the large market cap coins, taking a look at their BTC pairing, as I think that'll give us a greater indication of what's going on. First up, Tron, up 20% in the last 7 days. This chart is abysmal. To put in perspective just how bad this chart is, let's look at it. That sounded weird, but Tron bottomed out in the deepest parts of the bear market in November 2018 at around 300 Satoshis. That did act as support for a time. However, in June, it smashed through it, acting as resistance for a little while before falling even further. This coin posted new all-time lows, the lowest it had ever been against this Bitcoin pairing. Next up, Basic Attention Token with near 20% gains over the last week. Pretty much the exact same chart, bottoming out in November of 2018, with that acting as support resistance for a little while before falling even further. Rally beginning mid-September, really kicking off late September. Next up, 0x with, again, just about 20% over the last week. One of the worst charts ever. Literally all it's ever done is crash. However, until now, beginning mid-September, quite a nice rally. Last one, and I do expect this chart to look somewhat different, Chainlink posting near 40% gains over the last week. And something different we do see, much healthier of a chart. After correcting after hitting a new all-time high, eventually hit support at around 15,000 Satoshis before rallying up so hard it was extremely overbought on the RSI, posting a figure of close to 89 at one point. Now, if this is going to turn into a chart that we've seen many times in crypto where we see multiple occasions of failures to hit a new all-time high, so we'll have one, we'll have another rally which is lower than the first one, eventual testing of support again before posting yet another lower high. Not sure about that, of course. It could go further than this, but what I am saying is that any higher than this does look very difficult to pull off. XRP being the classic example of what I've just described, just on a huge timescale. And there are plenty more coins which have had not eye-watering gains, Cardano for example, but a decent 10%. That seems to be the case for a vast majority of alts. But right now, many of us want to know, will it continue? Or how much confidence can we have realistically that it will? So I'm going to give you both sides. First up, arguments for continued alt season. If charting dominance was a real thing, which I'm not sure that it is, but let's assume that it is, then you can see a clear downward momentum trend here, rallying so high so quickly, having such a sharp breakdown followed by a lower high. Looks really bad short term for Bitcoin. In addition, many alts were until very recently as cheap as they have ever been against their Bitcoin pairings, so they have the potential to give some massive returns. Now, the arguments against alt season. The total crypto market cap is not booming, meaning lots of new money is not entering the market to sustain these coins' growth. Most of the gains seemingly are coming from Bitcoin holders or Tether holders primarily, which is disappointing. If there was gonna be a new surge in money entering the market, there is little argument that the majority of it would go into the most popular choice, being Bitcoin, rather than alts. And to prove my point even further, Bitcoin within the last hour has started to rally. We can see some new money entering the market at the exact time Bitcoin starts to rally. And guess what? Bitcoin is the one growing the most right now, albeit very little. But it is putting a cap on the gains of the alts. Many of the ones we just looked at are just now starting to turn red. Second, remember this is just arguments against alt season. I'll give you my real opinion at the end of it. But what is the real purpose of altcoins? We know that adoption is a bit of a meme right now. There are, of course, some exceptions to this, one being basic attention token. However, one of the most compelling reasons for alts has always been dem gains. Alts have this ability to pump much harder and much faster than Bitcoin because, let's be honest, at this point, Bitcoin is quite bloated, having pumped so hard already since its inception. However, leverage trading solves all of that. You can take on all the risk rewards you want, applying leverage, and never actually leave Bitcoin. So those are the arguments for and against. I think the answer, as usual, is somewhere in the middle. There is one thing that I do think is quite interesting about the market though. It's the dates of the rallies, and you can check this for yourself. A lot of them began mid-September or end of September, which just so happens to really nicely line up with this movement in Bitcoin dominance. It honestly looks quite coordinated, which does make me suspicious that this has all been orchestrated by whales. Their end game, of course, being to dump their bags on people like you and me, and then they end up with more Bitcoin in the end than they had to start off with.
I made you look. You were slave to a page in my rhyme book.
So you're telling me all this time crypto was manipulated? I think I need to sit down. One point of concern, of course, would be, but not limited to,
cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin have been exploited to support billions of dollars of illicit activity like cybercrime, tax evasion, extortion, ransomware,